The Lanterns Beneath Heishan Forest. Part 1. The Village That Breathes at Night. They told me Heishan Village no longer existed. But when I stood before its cracked stone gate under the bleeding dusk, the air was alive. Not with sound, but with breathing. I could feel it beneath my boots. A soft, rhythmic pulse that seemed to rise from the soil itself. My name is Zhou Ming, a researcher from Beijing University. My job was simple on paper: document abandoned rural settlements for a digital history project. But my reasons for taking this trip were less academic. My grandmother was born near Mount Heishan, and before she died, she would whisper strange things in her sleep. The forest remembers, the lanterns burn still. No one knew what she meant, until I found her old journal. At the back, scrawled in a trembling hand, was a single name: Heishan Village, crossed out again and again. The locals in the nearby town of Luyang reacted just as she did, with dread. When I asked where the path was, the old men in the tea house fell silent. One of them leaned close and murmured through toothless gums, "Don't go when a mountain breathes." I thought it was superstition, but when I began the hike through the forest, I noticed something strange. Every time I exhaled, the mist didn't drift away. It clung to me, curling backward like invisible fingers. The deeper I walked, the darker it grew, even though the sun was still up. After 2 hours, I reached the old signpost, Heishan Village, 1 li ahead. The wooden letters had rotted, but the faint smell of burnt incense hung in the air. I pushed forward, and at last, the trees parted to reveal the gate. 2 stone lions eroded into featureless lumps, moss crawling down their backs like veins. And beyond that gate, I saw them, dozens of lanterns, hanging from blackened eaves, motionless though the air trembled faintly, as if they were listening. Part 2. The Silence That Watches. Heishan was not dead. It was watching. The houses leaned inward, warped by time, their windows like empty sockets. Chickweed grew through the cracks in the stone steps, and the air was thick with the smell of old rain and rotting wood. Somewhere, water dripped rhythmically, a heartbeat echoing through the narrow lanes. I set up camp near the village square. My flashlight beam cut through the fog, scattering faint motes of ash that never seemed to settle. I told myself they were dust, just dust, but they shimmered faintly red when I moved. Around midnight, the recorder I'd left running began to hum. No wind, no insects, just a low, uneven pulse. When I pressed my ear close, it sounded like distant whispering. Not one voice, but many, overlapping, fading, then rising again, like the breath of 1,000 sleepers. That's when I noticed the wells. There were more than a dozen scattered through the village, each surrounded by smooth stones carved with old characters. I crouched to examine one. The carvings were eroded but legible, swirling shapes like eyes, hands, and mouths. The largest inscription was written in archaic Sichuanese. "When the dead breathe, light the way home." The word made my stomach tighten. Beneath them, the water rippled, though not from wind. The motion was slow, pulsing outward. As I leaned closer, I thought I saw something pale move beneath the surface, a hand, or the reflection of one. I jerked back, flashlight shaking. The ripples stilled. That night, sleep refused me. Every hour, I heard faint footsteps outside the tent, soft, dragging, circling. The lanterns above swayed gently, though the air was heavy and still. And once, just before dawn, I woke to the sound of breathing again. Not human breathing, but deep and wet, echoing from below the ground. Part 3. The Woman at the Shrine. The next morning, I decided to explore the forest north of the village. My compass spun in my hand, the needle twitching erratically as if rejecting direction. Still, I walked on, following a faint red shimmer between the trees. After what felt like hours, I found the source, the Heishan Shrine. It was half collapsed, but its altar was perfectly clean. Fresh ash lay in the incense trays. Someone, or something, had been here recently. And then I saw her, A woman kneeling before a row of extinguished lanterns. Her robe was white, soaked through at the hem with dark water. Her hair was long and black, dripping, though there was no rain. She whispered softly, rocking back and forth, her hands trembling over an unlit lantern. Her voice was low and rhythmic, like a lullaby sung to the dead. They breathe because we forgot them. They breathe because we left. I froze, my heart hammering in my throat. "Who are you?" I called. She stopped. The forest went still. Even the cicadas fell silent. Slowly, she turned her head, not all at once, but as though her neck were made of rope twisting strand by strand. Her face was pale, the color of milk, but her eyes were empty sockets, filled with faint red light that pulsed like the ember of a dying coal. She smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, just knowing, and in a voice that came from everywhere. Not her mouth, but the air, the ground, the trees, she whispered. "Do you carry the flame, traveler?" I stumbled backward. My foot caught a root. I fell hard. When I looked up, she was gone, but her lantern remained, a single red glow burning faintly in the shrine shadow. When I returned to the village, something was wrong. The roofs gleamed as though newly built. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. A child's laughter floated through the air. For a moment, I thought I'd gone mad or stepped backward in time. But as I drew closer, I realized the truth. The people moved, but their shadows did not. Part 4, the Night of Red Breath. At sunset, the illusion deepened. The villagers greeted me, smiling, calling my name though I had never spoken it. Their eyes were pale and wet like fish scales. They spoke in whispers, every word blending into the next. When I asked what year it was, they all said the same thing. The year the lanterns fell. I tried to leave, but every path twisted back to the square. The wells bubbled faintly, like something beneath them was sighing. The air was heavier than before, thick and damp, clinging to my throat like breath that wasn't mine. Then the old man appeared. His back was bent, his hat made of straw, so frayed it looked like hair. He stepped from the shadows and spoke in a voice that wasn't his alone, dozens of whispers layered together. "You lit the lantern, didn't you?" You answered her call. I didn't understand, but when I checked my satchel, my heart stopped. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was the red lantern from the shrine. I had never touched it, yet it pulsed, a living heartbeat against my fingers. The ground trembled. The wells began to breathe. The villagers' smiles widened, stretching their faces until skin tore at the corners of their mouths. From beneath them came a low, wet sound, as if the earth beneath Heishan had begun to inhale. The soil split open in long cracks, revealing veins of something soft and red, like muscle. Roots squirmed out, slick and pulsing. The villagers began to sink, their legs melting into the ground as they reached toward me. "Stay," they hissed. "You carry the flame. You belong." I ran, through the forest, through the rising mist that burned like smoke in my lungs. Behind me, the trees moved, bending inward. The forest breathed with me, faster, louder, until every gasp I took echoed from the mountainside. The lantern in my bag grew hotter. Smoke rose from the fabric, then the light burst free. 1,000 faces pressing against it from within, mouths open in silent screams. They burst into the air like fireflies made of sorrow, dissolving one by one into the dark. By dawn, I stumbled out onto the old road, my mind fractured, my body shaking. Behind me, Heishan was gone, swallowed by mist. But far away, through the gaps in the pines, I saw them. Hundreds of red lanterns, floating just above the ground, drifting toward me like watchful eyes. They weren't hanging, they were following. Part 5, the breath that never ends. I never told anyone what happened. Not the university, not my colleagues. The project was quietly canceled, and the name Heishan vanished from the database as if it had never been typed. But the breathing never stopped. Sometimes in my apartment in Beijing, I wake to the sound of it, faint at first, then closer like someone sleeping behind the walls. My dreams are filled with forests that inhale and exhale, and faces glowing faintly from behind red paper screens. 3 months later, I received a package. No sender, no return address. Inside was a single lantern, paper thin, its edges burned. The scent of pine and ash filled the room. Written across it, in black ink bleeding through the fibers, were the same words from a well. When the dead breathe, light the way home. I sealed it in a drawer, but every night since, the air in my apartment grows heavier. Sometimes, the lights flicker in perfect rhythm with the sound of my own heartbeat. Or perhaps not my heartbeat at all. Yesterday, my neighbor told me she heard someone whispering in my room when I wasn't home. A woman's voice, soft and sorrowful, repeating something too faint to catch. Tonight, as I write this, the city outside has gone silent. The breathing has returned, closer than ever. The sound seeps through the floorboards, up the walls, into the space behind my desk. And now, I hear footsteps in the corridor. Slow, dragging. Vet. The breathing stops completely. The air feels like it's holding something in. From the crack beneath the door, a red light begins to bloom, pulsing like a dying heart. I think I understand now what the villagers meant. When a mountain breathes, it isn't the earth exhaling. It's the dead, remembering to inhale again.